bit on officials, just real quick. I just think that they're the unsung heroes of high school athletics. We can't go on without them. I know it's a tough undertaking. Their job is invaluable to high school athletics going on, and just appreciate the work that each of those guys and ladies put into being experts in that field, and the amount of work that it takes to put themselves in that position.
We value them simply because without them we can't have our sport, and so really appreciate the relationships that we have built over the years with some of these guys, some of them lifelong friends at this point.
But officials are very, very important. They make us go. Without them, there aren't any sports. We need them. I think we would like to continue to get out there and make them feel wanted, needed, and appreciated as coaches. And I think the topic that we're on today will show them how valuable they are in the sports in the state of Louisiana.
Without officials, we wouldn't have any games around here to be played anywhere, honestly. So I value what they do. One of the things that I appreciate them for is trying to be as consistent and as fair as possible. And I think sometimes as coaches, we forget that, and we expect them to do the impossible thing, and we lose sight of that sometimes. And so I just appreciate them for everything that they do.
I think for the most part, these guys get into the profession because they want to see and help young kids and athletes be successful. So we need them, we really do.
Officials and coaches are way more alike than people think. We're both out there to help promote the values that are learned from the game, and we're both in it for the right reason.
For the opportunity. I'm excited to be back in my home state, even if I have to do it from North Carolina through a computer, but I can smell the food. No, my basketball story is that I grew up in Hayes, Louisiana, and played Class B basketball at Bell City, where we played 48 games a year, and that's all we did. I've walked through the officiating world as a middle school, high school official, small college, a little bit of Division I, only refereed for 7 years, and then I've spent the last 13 in basketball administration. Is either the NCAA rules editor for 8, the national coordinator for 3, and then conference supervisor of officials for 6. So I've kind of been on a couple of different sides of the officiating world, and very grateful. What a privilege to serve our game. The game saved my life, and I've spent most of it now in refereeing, and I love it.
Part of the game. I love the game so much. I love competing. Competition, I love to win. I like to play to win. And as an official, I learned that it was just as much competition in officiating as is in playing, because you compete to get each call right. That's what you do. And when you get the call right, every call right, you're a winner. You get that W. And so it was instilled in me. That was a passion I had, and I called high school football, basketball, and baseball, for quite a few years. And I think after 16 years in football, I started working Division I football. But I think after about 8 years in basketball, I started working women's. I enjoyed it. Then I got into working some men's in the old Southland Conference for years, and then I'm in my 19th year of the National Football League. It's been something it's been a rewarding career, something that has given me a great opportunity in life, meeting a lot of different people, great people. It's real, true people there. The camaraderie that you share in officiating, you're able to communicate with each other. It's just a wonderful experience, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. This is my 11th year as assignment regional coordinator for high school football, and I was the for baseball for 23 years and also assigned basketball for 2 years. So it's been a great ride, and I hope to continue to do it some more.
My officiating story, I was that parent. I was that parent sitting in the stands watching my son play bitty basketball and just being vocal. And I remember telling the official, whatever. And he challenged me, well, he said, if you think you can do better, you come and join me. And so I said, you know what? I will be there. And so the very next day, I jumped in, got a shirt. I was at the Jefferson Parish Recreation Department at Oakdale Playground. Just like you said, it's about relationships and people who you will meet that will be your friends forever. And basketball allowed me to have that fraternity or that relationship with people. And as an official, so much of it is about relationships and how you just want to treat good people. And so basketball allowed me to have a network of friends, and working basketball, high school basketball in the state of Louisiana has truly been a blessing that I will never take for granted.
I've pretty much been around high school football for about 45 years as an official. And I was hooked early. I mean, I think other people said that they got hooked. Well, I got hooked early and I've stayed with it. I'm interested personally in what this extraordinary panel has to share with us, because what I've learned about officiating is you can't stop learning. So I'm happy to be a participant to learn. And I appreciate these panelists sharing with us.
Like a marriage, quite honestly. I mean, most of us are in this for the long haul, and we're going to be going to the same gyms and crossing paths with people in our community. And it's so much like any other important relationship, in that if we don't communicate, then there's nothing really good that can come out of it. We have to communicate for the health of the relationship, for the health of the game.
It is critical. It's like Debbie said, it's like a marriage. And what do you have when you have a marriage? You have to build trust. Building trust, with coaches, or building trust with fans or anybody you see, that's so important. It's the trust that you it's respect too, but you don't just get respect. It's something you have to earn. And one thing I want to say about communication, and I think it's so important, everybody's going to communicate differently. Everybody's communication style is different. I don't care if it's at a wedding reception or if it's in competition, you're all going to communicate differently. And, you have to develop that style, and you have to be a listener. You have to listen. And I think that's one of the biggest things that officials fail to do, is listen to coaches. I mean, truly listen. And, if you can do that, and some of the things we're going to talk about, you're going to build respect and trust, and you can move forward and have a good game.
We need to train the younger guys to understand this, that it doesn't really, it's not about them. And I think sometimes that's the biggest issue in today's officiating crew, is a lot of them think that it's about them, and it's not. Or that's the demeanor that I get. And hopefully this will change.
We as officials, some of us, feel that the game is about us. Whereas the game is really not about us. We are there to do a job, and that job is to manage the game. And so a part of managing the game, in my view, is the relationships or the respect that we should have for each other, us being officials and the coaches being the coach. And there's where the marriage comes, to respect each other, do the work that we have to do. And guess what? At the end, we hope all things will be made well. And so if I do my little part of not having an ego, not having all eyes on me, right? And also being professional, looking people in the eye, which I think is a trait that we need to enforce more, and just being honest and true to the self and true to the game, guess what? All things will be made well, and that you'll have an anniversary. You'll have an anniversary.
When something goes wrong, there's one or two calls that are made early in a game that affects the entire game plan that I've worked on for hours upon hours. I'm going to be upset. I'm not personally upset with that official, but yes, I'm going to be upset. And look, I'm going to tell you right now, when I walk into a gym, my personality has completely changed. The demeanor is completely changed. And so for an official to be able to understand, just have an understanding or a little bit of empathy there, and knowing that I'm not personally attacking him when I get loud.
First of all, the jersey, you wear a referee shirt, it's the striped shirt. When you go out there on the court, on the field, you're going to have to make decisions that's people are not going to be pleased with. 50% might like it, the other 50 no. So you're not going to be liked. But you can't go out there thinking that they're getting on Greg Gotro, or anybody else. They're getting on that jersey and what you represent. So if you can not take it personally and just let it slide down that stripe, where it doesn't get stuck on your back and don't carry that chip, to me, you can manage the game a lot better. Again, we talk about personalities. Some of us, can't take, that criticism as well as others. So some people have to work harder, in accepting the criticism, and because you can't, people are going to question your judgment all the time. That's a known factor. They're going to question it. But, they're questioning that shirt. And if you can remember that, they're getting on the officiating shirt, not on Lee Sanders or, anybody else. They're getting on the shirt. And don't take it personally. If you can do that, you got, I think, 75% of the battle won.
One of the things that my daddy always taught me is you look a person in the eye when you talk with them. And so when we deal with coaches, you heard the analogy, you don't respond to thoughts, or you only respond if a question is asked. But even so, eye contact in response, I think that shows that we're listening, we're hearing, we may not agree. And just kind of like Greg said, whistle blows, somebody's going to be happy, somebody's going to be disappointed. However, I think if the eye contact and just being approachable to a coach, again, who is fighting for whatever he's fighting for.
So my whole foundation is treat others like you want to be treated. And that goes for the coaches too.
We all there with mutual respect for each other, and understanding that it's not going to be personal in the heat of the moment. And I think sometimes that's the way it's taken.
Because the other thing that I get to say in spring meetings is that I'm working with officials to build the integrity that we want to treat everyone as we want to be treated, but we also have that expectation of coaches. So if you want us to listen to you, you've got to quit screaming in our face and cursing and saying things that you would never say or want us to say to you. So I think we've got to build a relationship with our coaches and promote the sportsmanship piece that's on the other side of our officials in our coaches. So when I talk about a marriage and I talk about a partnership, I'm talking about educating both sides and having the same expectation for our coaches that we are going to have for our officials, which is treat others like you want to be treated.
Approachability goes along with just listening. Sometimes as a coach, I think we just want officials to listen to us. That may not change their call or anything, but just them listening to us, it makes us feel like we have a little bit of voice in what's going on.
But to your original question about listening, we all know when someone wants to hear what we have to say through our body language. And, I started out this thing about a marriage, and I too will celebrate 34 years this summer. But I can tell you, everybody has a love language, even coaches. And we've got to be able to talk a language or not talk a language based on even on this panel of what people need to hear. And again, being respectful, when someone's walking up to you, if they really want to hear what you have to say. There's nothing more frustrating over the last 34 years than be talking to the side of my husband's head while he's got the remote looking at the TV. And yet, when we translate that over to the basketball court, our coaches don't want to be, talking to the side of our head either. And at the same time, my job as a coordinator and even as an official is what James said, is look them in the eye first chance you get and say, I'll be right back, coach. I'll address that for you, but I got a job to do right now, but I'll be right back and doing the best that we can.
For me, it's technique driven. I mean, I have to keep in mind that there's certain things I have to do. A technique that works for me, typically when I engage with a coach, other than in a pregame situation, during a game, it's because I've been called over to the sideline. Wingfish says, hey, coach wants time I wants to talk to you. He's not happy. And usually, I can't recall too many times when I get called to the sidelines because he's happy about something, wants to congratulate the crew on how good a job they're doing. So I'm walking over there knowing that this is going to be a little combative. And the first thing I do is I say, coach, you're upset. Tell me what's the problem. And I let him go, because he has to have a little bit of steam blown off before I can get any real information. So I let him blow off a little bit of steam. And then I ask questions. So I understand you, coach, what you're saying is. And I try to repeat back to him, which seems to be the problem, because what I'm saying there is, I heard you, and I want to make sure I understand you. And I find that if you pose questions back to them, they have to calm down just to think for a moment about, to answer the question. So they have to stop yelling long enough to form a response to you. I have found that asking coaches a lot of questions as he's trying to rant on about something tends to calm him down, slow him down, and I get the information I need.
Yeah, just a specific example is, we don't expect for officials to stop live game situations and come talk every time that we have a concern. But their ability to come over on a dead ball situation during a timeout, come by, and they know whenever we were upset. Usually I make sure that they're well aware. And so, their ability to come by and just, I don't even have to agree or like what they said, but just that they address it, in a dead ball situation. And so when they do that, at that point, I know that guy's approachable. He's willing to communicate with me, and that's all we're looking for.
In basketball it's tougher though, because you don't have a lot of situations where, you're stopped in front of the bench. And then you really can't officiate a game and talk to a coach at the same time. But your concentration is not, you can't have both, what you're saying. So, you got to use the opportunities in a basketball game during dead balls to communicate when you can. And like you said, tell the coach, I'm going to check on it. I'll get back with you. But if you tell the coach you're going to check on it, you have to get back to him, even though he might have forgotten, but you go back to him later when he's thinking about it, he's going to say, yeah, well, he came back to me and told me what the situation was.
If they're not being respectful to you, there are rules that can take care of some of that. But up until that point, we can't be them. And we have to take a high road a lot of times in situations that maybe it's bumping right up against the rule and we're choosing not to penalize. And we can't cop an attitude just because we feel disrespected. We have a job to do. And I think this communication piece is so important because we can't say everything we think. We don't have time to, and that's probably a good thing. But I would also add to that I know with our mechanics going into the COVID season, should we have games, we're going to be distancing more from each other and from players and from people. So our body language is going to, a lot is going to rest on our body language as we move away from people that we normally would have been very close to in proximity with. So I think you got to take a look at your body language in games where you were really upset or someone was very disrespectful. Go back and take a look at, or get somebody else to look at it and see what you're communicating towards with your body language. I think is important too.
officiating angry. You know, once they blow the whistle, it's you know, they got that look of anger on their face, like I got you. And that, you know, in my review, that, you know, that's not needed. Just blow the whistle, you know, do your mechanic and go about your business. And body language ties into so much of that. And so I think just as Doc said and Greg highlighted, you know, the importance of having your language show that you are approachable, that we are human, and then kind of like Debbie said, you know, do as to others as you want them to do unto you. And so body language shows so much of that, but there are so many officials that I'll see that, you know, as soon as they blow the whistle, whatever, then they got that, like I got you look, you know. And that's, you know, that and as Debbie knows, or I'll know, the tape doesn't lie. You know, the tape will show how your body language was, how you interacted with the coach, also to the point if your lips moving, so that it showed that you said something, you know. But more importantly, you know, we have to always, in my view, you know, show professionalism, treat people with respect. And then one last little thing that I always like to do is, and I know I get it from my mother, is a slight smile or some humor can de-escalate a situation so fast.
I can tell you that almost every time we respond to a statement on a bang bang play or as fast as our game's moving, it's not always, it's like the difference between texting and talking. Sometimes the real message doesn't always get through. So I'm not saying you would never ever respond to a statement. You know, I had a coach one time go, you know, that was a charge. That was a charge. And the referee said, "Is that a question, coach?" Because everybody kind of knew what our plan was. And he goes, "Right? Wasn't that a charge, right?" And so, you know, they figured it out and everybody kind of laughed and went on. But I don't think there are any absolutes anywhere because our game is so dynamic. People are dynamic and we got to have some give and take. But I think that wherever the expectation is generally where the disappointment is too. So if we have a high expectation for something that doesn't happen, then we have a great disappointment. So the communication has to be on both sides of the ball and where we can. And we got to make a way somehow to build a culture or at least work on building a culture where everybody understands what their roles are. But then in the midst of the battle, you know, some of that stuff goes out the window and we've got to be real with people. We've got to open up and face them. We've got to look them in the eye and address them whenever the situation requires that. And I can say a lot with my eyes.
On some statements, you can come in and change it. In football, like I said, we can do that, you know, and help him. But on, you know, what I'll try to do is say, Coach, if he has a statement, if he keeps on, I say, well, Coach, honestly, you know, what's your question? How can I help you? You know, what can I do? You know, by asking that question, you know, then you can, you know, hopefully get some information. You have to feel it. You have to have that feeling inside. But, you know, your personality, you know, and I think that's the toughest thing. Some guys can't. It's hard to adjust to that personality in the competitive field without them losing the anger. So some guys have to work harder, or some officials, I should say, you know, in just handling the situation and being prepared. And, you know, you're never going to be prepared for all situations. So, you know, you got to be a quick thinker sometimes. Sometimes you just have to react. Body language. Sometimes, you know, like James said earlier, a smile might help a situation, might, you know, bring it down a level. You know, it might escalate it. You know, some coaches want to be talked to. Some coaches don't want to be talked to. You know, it's a matter of learning, you know, their personality and how to deal with them. And I think the best teacher is just continue to blow the whistle time and time again, and we continue to learn. This is my 47th year of officiating, and I'm still learning. And I think the day when I quit learning, it's probably time for me to get out. You know, if it's in communication, if it's in rules, the knowledge, you know, we haven't talked about that. You know, you have to have the rules knowledge to be able to communicate to the coaches and have authority. That's all part of communication. The knowledge that you have.
In those conversations, you got to know the rules so that you can verbally say what he or she did wrong. So if you don't know the rules, and then now he's asking you a question that you need to respond, you need to know, well, his or her feet were not, planted, they were not in correct defensive stance or what have you. But if you come in and just say gibberish, they can figure that out. And so, to Dr. Debbie and Greg, it starts with knowing the rules, and then you can communicate at whatever level. Yep.
And James, to iterate that about knowing the rules and how you get it back to the coach is important. You might have a rule interpretation that's incorrect. And if you go and you say, Coach, that's Rule 7, Article, Section 2, Article 3, if you do it in a sarcastic way to him, you're going to get him upset. You're going to put him on fire. Now, depending on that coach's personality, if you know that you can say that, to the coach, and he might say, oh, okay. But, that's a chance that you're taking when you're doing that. So you have to know their personality. You have to have a feel for it. And again, like I said, be a quick thinker, with that. But, it just comes with time, and something you have to work on, though. You learn from each experience when you go out. When you go out to a game and you watch, if you watch it on TV, I've learned more watching games, live at a stadium or in a gym, than I have probably sometimes, actually working it. Because you can see other officials, what they're doing correctly. Hey, I want to do that. I want to put that into my officiating philosophy. Or you see it and you say, oh man, I sure don't want that in my philosophy of officiating. So learn from that. And you can learn the communication. Watch the body language coaches, body language of officials. And you can see, you can tell when an official is intimidated. Honestly, we have various levels of officials in high school. We have good officials and we have guys just learning. And you can watch the body language. It can tell you a good bit. I think I can go to a game, watch an official work 4 or 5 minutes, and kind of just see if the guy has the it factor in a way, that he has the ability to work and improve.
We as coaches and the athletes are preparing days ahead of that event, leading up to that game. And so I like it whenever we can acknowledge that there's been a lot of preparation put into this game, and we expect their very best efforts.
You want officials who are going to work hard. You want officials who are going to be professional, look the part, be the part, act the part. You want officials who are going to be approachable, And I think one thing that I think Lee, you said is that a lot of people don't see the hours and the months that is put into our sports. And, if it's a Friday night big district game or whatever, coaches' emotions are running high, players' emotions are running high. Officials know that they're going to be officiating too. So we just want professionalism.
But even in the late stages of learning, what you find is you know how to communicate and you know how to respond because you don't have to think about everything you're doing. And I can remember, and I don't know if it was at your camp or one of the other camps, where they just like, you got to go see plays somewhere, go see plays. If it's in the playground, if it's someplace, you got to see plays, hear what they're saying, learn the game. We got referees that have never played. That's fine. We got coaches that have never played. But somewhere or another, you got to educate yourself, and you got to play catch up, depending upon how far back you are. And part of that is you got to get a good mentor. You've got to get in the rule book, and you've got to commit not just to your physical condition, but to getting in the rule book, because you can't communicate what you don't know.
Right.
So we're not trying to pacify people or get them off our back. We're trying to do a job, and our job is to enforce the rules. And along the way, it's customer service, where I've got to be able to be a professional at my job, because what I do in the black and white affects everybody else in the black and white. And so every night I go out there and I'm less than my best, it hurts the guy that's coming tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And so I just think we got to put the work in. And so for people who are doing it, I get that the people we're talking to are not making $3,000 a night. I get that. doesn't change the expectation of who we are when we have a conversation or need to have a conversation, or we decide to put a whistle on a play, or we decide not to get across half court at trail. You know, the respect that we get from them in large part is some of what we bring on ourselves. So if we're going to ask them to respect us, we've got to earn it, and we earn it through doing our job and being respectful. Well, I want to go back to body language because, you know, I've had more coaches get upset with officials who will not make eye contact or roll their eyes or have some look of disgust. And sometimes we don't even know that we are doing this. And so I would go back to how James started all of this, and that if you're going to look at them, you need to know that they are reading what you're saying. And you know what? I hear coaches go, I want somebody that looks like they respect my game. I want a referee on my game that looks like they've been working as hard as we've been working. And some of that is, you know, maybe at 67, I'm not going to be I will not be running like I can run now, but I'm going to give you my very, very best. And if the assigner put me on the game, they believe I can still get down there, then I need to get down there. But that's not a license to let myself go. But I hear coaches say, to Greg's point about appearance, you know, when they walk in the gym, they make a decision about how much they're going to get out of us. And I just wonder, you know, every night they walk in and they see me and you, what is their expectation? And it's not too late to change it. If you're hearing some things that you know you can fix, go fix it and let them know.
I think the number one thing we have to do is stay calm. You know, we have to stay calm in that environment, and you have to slow down. You know, go ahead and take time to put all the pieces together. You know, if it's a football game and you have multiple play situations that might happen and a coach is out, I just think that you got to slow down. And I always say, if you think you're going slow, go slower. You know, and you have a chance to replay something in your mind and then before you react. If you react right away, you know, you're gonna put a little additional, you know, gas on the fire instead of slowing down, keeping you calm, and try to get the total picture together.
The biggest play of respect that someone can show me as a coach is an official who comes to me, who's worked hard the whole game at communicating with me and showing me respect, and they come to me in that moment and they want to talk and listen to me. And if I can get, and they're also calling me to a measure of accountability, as you know, best that we can while we're being respectful. And then, you know, if they can't do that, then we got to go. So I think just confronting. I mean, I say confronting, people think that's a negative connotation, but you know, facing them, going to them, going straight, you know, toward the bench, and speaking calmly and showing the listening skills that we've been talking about, the eye contact, the body language, all that. Now, that doesn't say ignore behavior that shouldn't be penalized. I don't think any of the messages today should be, oh, we want to talk people out of stuff because, you know, and at the same time, we don't want to use our rules as a sword where we just, you know, stick people just because. I mean, I think, you know, we've got a job to do, and people will respect when we do our job and we use our rules the way they were intended to be used.
You know, there's one area I think we left out, and it deals with just common sense officiating. You know, we use a lot of common sense in communicating with coaches, you know, like preventive, you know, like Paul's comment, you know, getting that out. You know, that's a good technique. That's just thinking, that's quick thinking. Hey, he sold me on it. He's going to have him sell the coach on it. You know, it's a matter of the same thing. You have a tough call, you know, you're going to go explain it, you know, and I agree. You know, that's just some ways to cut it off and help, you know, preventive, common sense.
And I think you have to be able to tailor how you communicate and deal with coaches to some extent based on their personality. If you have a coach who you know is going to be very verbal and vocal, you probably have to let that coach be a little more verbal and vocal. and let them be a little upset before you try to do too much with them. And typically they're going to get over it. If you have a coach who you don't hear from much, when that coach has a question, you got to get on that. Because if that coach is asking a question, then it's something really bothering them, because you don't typically hear from that coach. So my experience taught me not every coach is the same, and you can't really treat them all exactly the same in terms of how you manage that relationship. So learn your coaches, understand what it is that they need from you and your crew, and adjust to that.
Because each coach is different. Each coach has a different personality. And, you know, for me, you know, it's about relationships. And so I've been around for a while. And so I know, just kind of like Paul said, some coaches are going to be a little bit more active, coaching their teams most of the time. None of it is directed at you. Don't take it personal. But there's those coaches that are very quiet, but if and when they jump up and say something, we need to pay attention to them. And kind of like what Debbie said, we have the rules to protect us, and we're going to do our jobs. However, building that rapport, building that relationship, and for me, it always starts and ends with some type of a brief smile and some eye contact, and that, you know, I will continue to press on with that and take that as the basis or the baseline for your relationship with your coaches.
Of integrity, and you can't fake that. You got to tell the truth. You don't need to be worrying about which version of you, and they don't need to be worrying about which version of you they're going to get tonight. You got to work on you before you ever put the shirt on. And you know, I had one of my very first supervisors said to me, you know, every referee has a toolbox, and different people have different tools in their toolbox, and you got to know which tool to pull out at which time in your toolbox. And my daddy was a welder, and I understand, a farmer, and I got that. I did. And I think that's a lot of what Paul's saying, and James and Greg as well, that, you know, get your tools sharpened up, you know, spend the time on all the things that referees should spend before you ever put the shirt on. And make sure that the tools in your box are the ones that you need, and then put a few in there you're not sure if you're going to need or not, and be ready and equipped. I used to have people go, why are you going to that camp, or why are you going to this camp? And, you know, you hadn't been refereeing long enough to do that. And you know, thinking back on it, you know, sometimes our own people are our worst enemies. But you know, position yourself to be the best you that you can be, but you got to start with the heart, and it'll show what's in your heart, and you've got to be respectful.
If you're fortunate enough to have a true passion for officiating, that's going to help you tremendously. It kind of ties in what Doc said. There's two, but, you know, I can give you an example. You know, I myself has been married. We've been married 43 years, my wife and I. I can tell you, we got married in 77. The next 10 years, starting with 78, I missed our anniversary because I was at a basketball officials camp, either in Georgia or Tennessee. I had a passion for it. It's something that you strive and you do. You take care of all the little details. You work hard at taking care of the details. I kind of refer to a teacher. You know, elementary students in classroom or junior high, don't you think in every classroom, those students know when that teacher really cares about her students, you know, or his students? Same thing as an official. Official goes out with the passion and takes care of all the details. Then coaches, fans, you know, he exuberates that, you know, that he wants to be there. He loves that. He likes that environment. You know, the official that wants that last second call in the game. You know, you want that. You want that last shot at the free throw line when the clock's out, you're down by one or whatever. You know, you want that. You know, you want that competition. And if you're lucky enough to have that passion and dedicate and take care of, you know, all the ABCs, you're going to be successful. And communication is one of the top keys to be successful.